Good evening and welcome back into Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex. Lord, Brave spring training is underway. I recently posted an article. You can go check it out in its entirety on the site sportstalkatl.com. But I'm discussing the questions. Now, these are my questions, Alex. I'm sure you have your own that will determine the success of the Braves 2025 campaign. And I want to start it out with the one that I believe is the biggest to me. And that's, can this rotation replicate its success from a year ago? I really think this scenario that we have presented, because Charlie Morton and Max Fried have really hurt the depth of this rotation because the Braves did nothing at all this entire offseason to replace those innings, which is 300 innings that they've got out of those guys every single year for the last half decade. They did nothing to replace those. They are relying on this group from a year ago, the Spencer Schwellenbachs, the Ronaldo Lopez, and the Chris Sales, who all went on to have these ridiculous years to replicate that. Now, Schwellenbach with a full season, possible, right? Like, he was pitching as well as anyone. You could get a plus there from what we got last year. But Chris Sale and Ronaldo Lopez, guys, there is 0% chance either of those guys replicates what they did last season. I mean, we're talking about a guy in Chris Sale who wasn't healthy for 5 years, comes into Atlanta and wins the Triple Crown. First guy to do, he's not doing that again. Like, it's just not happening. He could be great again. He's not doing that again. Like, it would be, there's a less than 1% chance. And then Ronaldo Lopez went from reliever to starter and had a sub-2 ERA. Like, that he's not going to have a sub-2 ERA again, right? So acting as if those guys can replicate the success, it's not happening. Now, can the other guys pick it up? And that's where the question is. Can Grant Holmes be better than Charlie Morton? I think that's possible. Can Schwellenbach build off that in year two over a full season? And then obviously the highly anticipated return of Spencer Strider, hopefully in April.
Yeah, it's going to be a team effort in the aggregate, so to speak, for all the baseball nuts out there. In the aggregate is the phrase that everybody needs to familiarize themselves with, because you're going to get a full season of Schwellenbach, hopefully. And that's going to make up some of that loss. Obviously, Grant Holmes' emergence would make up for some of that loss. Spencer Strider's return will make up for some of that loss. So while it's a non-zero chance that Sale and Lopez replicate what they did last season, it is very close to zero, though. That's not to say the whole group can't get to at least close to what we did last year, and that should be the goal, because it was the best pitching staff in baseball. We just had a sorry butt offense, injuries, a little bit of regression. So if you have a little bit less pitching and a lot more hitting, you'll still be better off as a whole. Yeah. The pitching staff, though, as currently constructed, has more question marks than answers. There's no doubt about that. And I think more so than just, replicating the production of the guys you just mentioned is health. I mean, Braves fans know as well as any, and it's not just Braves fans, every rotation, starters go down. The strain they put on their bodies, nobody can handle it. I mean, nobody. Yeah. You're throwing, 150, 60, 70, 80 innings, and you're throwing in the high 90s with 5 different pitches. Your body can't take that. And so I think even more than their production is like, Sale, is he going to be healthy again? Lopez already battled fatigue issues. Is he going to be healthy? Schwellenbach has never pitched a full season worth of innings. Strider coming off of the UCL injury. That is my more concern. Whereas, like, the production, yes, of course, but like, are we even going to have, our horses for the postseason, which is all that should really matter.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, it's very reminiscent of what happened to the Braves, right, in 2023 with their offense. They're historic. Yep. The injuries, everyone, not only were they historic because everyone was healthy, they were historic because everyone had these incredible seasons, these outlier seasons that they had never really had before, all at the same time. Then a little bit of regression hits, the injuries hits, and you saw the effect of that. It could be the same thing. This was a rotation that was not only very healthy, especially considering what Chris Sale and Ronaldo Lopez have been in the past. They also went on and had these outlier career years that are going to be difficult to replicate even so. So yes, the combination of both regression and injuries is what really concerns you about the Braves rotation, and why a lot of people are like, hey, why the hell didn't they add another arm to the staff? Even if it was just a veteran and Charlie Morton or something like that. But listen, they are taking a little risk. We'll see if it pans out, but they better hope they stay healthy. You're absolutely right. I don't know if you have a specific question. I got plenty more. where that came from. Well, then I think you got to go to the injured stars, and this one can be quick because we just talked about these, but obviously you have the two stars in Ronald Acuna and Spencer Strider, everything, checking all the boxes. I think Strider, as I said, will be back hopefully by the end of April, and then Acuna maybe a month or two later. But how are they going to be when they get back? You know, pitchers are always volatile, let alone ones coming off season-ending injuries. I'm still very confident in Strider. I want to say that. Like, I think this is a pretty cut-and-dry injury. We see guys have UCLs and come back even stronger, and this guy just has stuff that you can't teach. And as long as he's still throwing at 100 miles per hour, he's going to be one of the nastiest pitchers in baseball. Now, it may take a month or two before he reaches where he was, but it wouldn't shock me at all if Spencer Strider not only returned, but had the best season of his career. Wouldn't shock me at all. Ronald Acuna Jr., on the other hand, we saw what happened in 2022. Is he going to be the 2022 version or the guy in 2023 that set records and was the 2023 NL MVP and the best player in all of baseball? That one, I think, is the much bigger question of the two.
Yeah, and to be honest, even if we get the 2022 version of Ronald Acuna Jr. and Profar is just, you know, maybe not what he was last year, but just, you know, like closer to that than what the Braves got in their corner outfield for the most part, it's going to be a significant improvement, even with 2022 Acuna, and Profar regresses a little bit from last year. That's how bad the Braves outfield was. But yeah, I completely agree with more confident in Strider just because ACLs are just way different than UCL. Where like the mechanics of an ACL hitting, fielding, running the bases is much more complex than I would say, you know, pitching. And I also want to say that I think Strider's ability to kind of mentally get over this might be a little bit easier than I would say Acuna's. Going through it a second at a time, obviously has experience in doing all that, but like, well, I guess Strider's had a, you know, Tommy John surgery before as well. So I guess that's a moot point.
Yeah, and then the last thing that I wanted to cover is the who's going to emerge for this team, right? Like who is going to be over the last 7 years? I mean, you can think every single year, you know, Alex Anthopoulos has come up with diamond in the roughs. The most notable of that is the postseason hero himself, Tyler Matzek. Came from any ball, literally hadn't pitched in the league for 5 years, became one of the best relievers, had the biggest moment probably in Braves franchise history with what he did in Game 6 of the NLCS. But really, both those postseasons, 2020 and 2021, he was unbelievable. That was the diamond in a rough. And you look at the Braves bullpen, they're going to need to find a guy like Tyler Matzek out of nowhere. Maybe that's Angel Perdomo. Maybe it's somebody else that we haven't even talked about, but they're going to need someone to step up in that bullpen. Diosbel Hernandez, is it going to be a prospect? Is it going to be a Hurston Waldrop or AJ Smith-Shawver taking that next jump and being a staple of this rotation like we saw with Spencer Schwellenbach? So there's a lot of options. Ian Anderson reemerging and becoming a starting pitcher again for this rotation. There's options, but they're going to need one, probably even two, to guys to step up, especially if injuries arise. And the Braves have been better at anyone than just out of nowhere, whether it's a free agent signing for nothing. I can name 100 of them that have come in. I mean, Anthony Schwarzak. I mean, guys that you didn't even know who they were, and all of a sudden they're pitching in the 8th inning of the game. And they've also been better than anyone at homegrown stars emerging quickly and making an impact. That's going to happen. Have to happen again this year for the Braves to have success.
In addition to, you know, guys being acquired and stepping up, just guys going into obscure roles that you and I never thought of, or now we are thinking of them only because Alex Anthopoulos has introduced us to a whole new line of thinking, a la Ronaldo Lopez from reliever to the rotation. Maybe he goes back to the bullpen to be a high leverage reliever because somebody like AJ Smith-Shawver does show he's here to stay in Atlanta, or Hurston Waldrop, instead of going into the rotation similar to Strider when he came up through the system, going to the bullpen first because that's where he can contribute right now. So even more than just somebody stepping up, new roles, guys who aren't currently in those roles emerging and, you know, contributing into Atlanta in a way that, you know, these guys, obviously, Hurston Waldrop, AJ Smith, obviously they're more valuable as a starter, but that's not always what we need. And quite frankly, what we need is bullpen guys, at least at this point in the offseason.
Yeah, there's no doubt there's concerns about this Atlanta Braves roster that haven't necessarily been there over the last 3 years, and they're going to have to be filled by some guys internally.
I got questions about regression. Now we needed to see it go the other way. And there are no shortage of guys who you're looking at And it's not Orlando Arcia becoming an all-star. It's Orlando Arcia, instead of being a 4 or like a 40 WRC plus guy, can you at least be an 80, 20% below league average? And then you look at guys who you obviously do expect to be all-stars. You're looking at Matt Olson. Matt Olson had a fine year last year, but coming off of that 2023 year, 50 home runs would be nice. Austin Riley, before the injury, he was, rounding into form. And if he had just finished out that season, everybody would have been happy with him. Sean Murphy, it's about time to start earning that money. Sean Murphy, that first half of the first season with Atlanta, quietly an MVP candidate. We need that guy. Again, Mike Harris, can we put it all together? Injuries have gotten in the way of Mike Harris putting it all together. Ozzie Albies, can you stay healthy and put it all together? So I have questions about the stars we're just kind of not overlooking, but we assume they are going to be great for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of was the Braves' level of thinking this entire offseason
100%.
is that this offense, especially with Jurickson and Profar taking over in left field, when everybody gets together, is going to be unstoppable. And while the pitching staff has its concerns, they're going to slug and pray in a lot of these games. And hopefully they can stay healthy enough and maybe make some moves at the trade deadline that are a little cheaper than they were this offseason. But I think they're confident enough in this lineup and everybody getting healthy, because
I
think,
listen, we're 1 year removed from the greatest lineup ever.
People forgot how dominant this. I mean, it's the best lineup in baseball.
Yeah.
When it's healthy, it's not even close. Don't send me the Dodgers. Don't send me the Mets.
It depends who you ask. Francisco Alvarez would say
otherwise. But that's a laughing stock. Like, I will laugh in your face. It's not even close. The level that we have top to bottom, especially with Profar in this lineup, when healthy. So yes, that's a big aspect of this. I want to talk about World Series or bust. We're going to talk about it coming up after the break. Some Braves players have some interesting comments on that infamous phrase.